revenues are federally controlled, and you're already cutting back and you're telling us you're broke, so we're putting our governing partner on notice, we got to work this out. And so, yeah, that's the first step. It wasn't, you know, grab the pitchfork and charge the hill. And we set the deadline out far enough that we would have a meaningful opportunity to begin measuring twice before we cut, understanding what's involved, understanding the revenues and the costs and the benefits and the burdens. And, you know, we had hopes that other states would join us. It's amazing. This American Lands Council, again, a bunch of commissioners came together 10 months ago and said, let's start this and let's go see if we can't get other states to join on this, because it's the only solution big enough, and let's get enough other states that we start getting Congress and getting their attention and teaching and educating, so we get legislation coming out of Congress. 10 months, we've got, you know, 3 or 4 other states already joining on and moving, but, you know, it takes money and manpower to keep moving that forward. And so
has there been a representative of the principal, i.e. the state, which has put the subordinate entity on notice that there has been an injury to the principle of contract, and specifically which part of that contract has been injured?
Well, I think to the extent that our legislation does that, I mean, that was the intent of the legislation. It was signed by the governor. So,
is the state of Utah using its congressional delegation and your allies in Congress to speak out in protest against your shrinking SRS funds, our diminishing PILT payments, and our FML deductions from our PILT payments?
yeah, we're working on. Rob Bishop is probably one of the more vocal and quite frankly very eloquent advocates on that. But it's a heavy lift, Commissioner, no doubt about it. So yes, Mike Lee and Chris Stewart and Jason Chaffetz and you know, Congressman Bishop, Senator Hatch. But unfortunately, I'm afraid that that we may end up going further down the road until we kind of wake up and come to our senses and say, guys, this is mission critical here.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's starting to happen. I mean, you heard Senator Murkowski. It's starting to happen, but I love this Governor Quinn in Illinois. You know, here's Illinois, right? That was floating 30-year bonds to make their annual pension contributions. You know, think about that one for a second. Illinois is kind of, you know, borrowing money to pay borrowed money. A couple months ago, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, Governor Quinn had a press conference and he says, folks, we have a rendezvous with reality. And as a nation, we've got a rendezvous with reality. And so, you know, that kind of goes back to our little Japanese tour bus analogy. We're going to grab this flag and keep moving and saying, here's probably, as I see it, the only solution big enough to just keep that promise you've already made and open it up. And, you know, you've got folks like Senator Murkowski already messaging the right direction. We've got to get enough of that leverage go in that direction. I'll tell you, because the commissioners really are the most agile, powerful unit of government. You know, state legislature meets once a year and we're done. But your county commissioners, you're on the ground and you are directly connected to the people. I mean, when's the last time you sat in a meeting like this next to your U.S. congressman?
Never.
You know, I mean, your county commissioners are right there and understand on the ground what's going on.
Amen.
And so that's where I'm pleased these commissioners came together and said,
So Utah has one of the most influential congressmen in the nation through Senator Hatch. But where is Senator Hatch at? How is he helping? What's he saying to his colleagues in Congress?
well, I mean, I can't tell you directly, but at the bill signing, and we had a separate website set up during the before this American Lands Council came about. We had a website set up called arewenotastate.com, and I'll tell you where that name comes from. In 1857, Dred Scott stood before the United States Supreme Court, and he held out his hands and he asked a question. He says, am I not a man? And in 1857, the Supreme Court said, no, you're not a man. And yet, That's not the law of the land today, because the people, somebody up here said it, the people and the states and the county said, that's just ridiculous. And so that are we not a state, right? That's where that comes from. So on that website, you can see the bill signing and Senator Hatch and Mike Lee and Rob Bishop. And but that being said, this is a heavy lift, Commissioner. This is a heavy political lift. And so we're building more and more leverage to give them support. They're working behind the scenes. I've talked to Senator Lee frequently, working behind the scenes. But the more messaging, the more weight we get in, the easier it is for them to start messaging out with their colleagues.
Quick question, Kevin, about the draft resource management.
I got it, Ron.
Thanks for
coming. Thanks a lot.
Kind enough to meet a few of us earlier today. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being here.
But anyway, you guys had some great, you and Michael Swinson, as far as how to handle all these road closures that we're under, as far as that are being proposed right now, between 2,180 to 3,000 miles of routes being closed. We have 2 months left in our comment period, and then we have 1 year for their RFP to come out. And we talked a lot about RS 2477. Kane County's been successful with that. Apache County in Arizona has been successful. We're looking at a lot of options here right now as far as how we can protect our access. Can you guys talk a little bit about, what we talked about in that meeting as far as with, 14 to 18 months left to really do something? What should we be doing? What should we be focusing on as far as to protect all these road closures?
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of go back and the answer I gave this gentleman over here. You get with your commissioners, understand your jurisdiction. I'd encourage you to get with these commissioners in Kane County. I mean, they've been through the whole experience, and and get with them, and they've got so much knowledge because they've been on the ground dealing with these things on the roads. And Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that. Something up?
Well, I talked to one of the Kane County commissioners, and he said the Attorney General's office helped them. I haven't contacted them, but I don't know if Colorado, they may or may not. But the state of Utah gave them, contributed, he told me $350,000. I don't think our government is going to give us $350,000 to fight the road closure.
It wasn't like that. The counties get, as you understand, a percentage of mineral lease royalties, right? The counties elected to divert, collectively, the counties elected to divert some of that money and put it into a litigation fund. So people say the state of Utah gave up that money, but make no mistake about it, the state didn't give it up. The counties gave that up. They diverted money from that would have been used for roads and maintenance and things of that nature to fight for other roads. So the counties funded their own lawsuits. The state was enabled that, but the counties did it.
Ken,
Yes.
I have a question about the Supreme Court decision CLEP versus, was it New Mexico? How do you reconcile as a judicial body a statement that the federal government has plenary municipal final authority over the management and rulemaking and disposal of public lands, and then to return a decision such as you outlined here with the Hawaiian lands decision? How do they possibly do that?
Yeah, let me just, before I answer that, thanks for coming, and understand you got to go, but we'd appreciate whatever support. If you're interested in this, we need your leverage and effort. And, it's going to take money and manpower going forward, and we'll be in contact with you on that sheet. So if you look at that law review article, and so yeah, if any of you need to go, I'll stick around, but please feel free, and thank you for being here. If you've got other questions, please get a hold of us. So if you look at that law review article, federal government has management authority, yes. That doesn't do away with their duty to dispose. Right? And so
That's what trustees do, man.
that's right. And so yes, they are the manager. That's exactly right.
Different than plenary power, which is absolute. Okay, that's nothing close to just management. one is a proprietary interest and the other is sovereign.
Right.
So, that was a really good question. Could you ask that again?
Well, here's the problem. The CLEP decision motivated the Federal Lands Policy Management Act of 1976. In fact, it was passed within months after the CLEP decision was returned. And that decision did not mince words. That decision stated that the federal government has a plenary, which means all-encompassing, municipal, which means down to the most intimate detail, authority over management and disposal. Is that correct?
Yes, but it doesn't undo the duty to dispose.
Well, absolutely.
Right? So they make the regulations for disposal. It doesn't do away with the duty.
How did they ignore the Northwest Ordinance of 17, what was it, 1770, or, I mean,
1787, yeah. Yeah, and so there's two aspects to this. I mean, there's certainly a legal aspect, no doubt about it. And it's going to be, it's a fascinating legal argument. It really is. But there's also simply the fact that Congress has the power. Congress has the power to dispose. They also have the duty to dispose. That's clear. You've got the Supreme Court after CLEPI in the Andrews case saying, solemn compact, bilateral agreement to be performed in a timely fashion. Right? So there's never been a case where the issue was not management, where the issue was disposal. It's not a case. There are management cases where they say, yes, the federal government has power to manage. There's never been a case like this on the issue of disposal. So that'll be fascinating. But in addition to the legal, so again, three-pronged stool, right? Education, negotiation, and can you see how if we can get this message out and we understand this is the opportunity of our generation, we do everything in our power to leverage and get this message out, can you see how that begins to change the game? We can't exercise rights we don't understand. We can't even begin to move in the direction of rights we don't understand. So education is a huge deal. And in a short period of time, we're already moving the needle. I mean, several states are moving legislation. So education, legislation, so regardless of litigation, when we run into the fact that we don't have any other solutions big enough and, unsustainable ends up being unsustainable, and there's only one solution big enough, as Senator Murkowski said, that's a whole separate issue as well. So you've got just a manifest injustice. You've also got legal issues. Those all need to move forward.
Do national parks and federally mandated wilderness areas, are they still in the disposable category? Or are they exempt?
And that's a good question. In Utah, what we decided to do as a state legislature in our bill, we took those off the table by our decision. Those are heritage sites for us and our children and the world by our decision. And so we've taken national parks, congressionally designated wilderness, and now congressionally designated wilderness, that's different than the ACECs and all the other stuff, right? Congressionally designated wilderness and national monuments, we took those off the table by our decision. So, your legislature, states, that's the beauty of what, states will do different things, but that's the power of states. And then you've got the option to vote with your feet. But if it's all controlled by one policy, you got nowhere to go. Kind of like Senator Murkowski was saying, where do you go?
I feel like you could be an extremely effective educational tool at the federal level. When are you planning on running for the federal Congress?
Yeah, no plans.
Why not? You're eloquent, you're educated, and you're clearly in the right.
Because I've sworn a vow of poverty. I have this funny sense that states are supposed to be states, and until states are states, we're not going to solve the problem. And so we're working on
It's because he has more power in the state legislature than member of the Congress does. Your county commissioners do too, and Ken understands that, and we need to understand that.
But that's an educational effort in itself. Another question up there?
Okay, so I'm all on board, libertarian, sign me up. My question is more state-centered. What if you don't trust your state government?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
And part of that question is, who decided the boundaries of these states? I think we have way more in common with you than we do with people in the plains. I couldn't name a town in the plains. I was born here in 1966, and I can't remember a time we haven't been talking about not seceding from Colorado. So you're thinking big here. Let's think big. Who decided these arbitrary square states? Right?
There was actually, I never saw the.
We used to be part of Utah territory.
Yeah.
This used to be.
But see, then we'd have to make y'all Mormons.
That's looking pretty good these days.
You're part of Mexico.
I'm just teasing.
So you kind of have a hard sell here. You're going to give our lands to Denver? How is that better?
Yeah, so think about it. Think about it. And that's a great question. It's a great question. With all the challenges, do you have more voice in Denver or Washington? Do you have more ability to mobilize in Denver or in Washington?
No way.
These guys are totally against us.
Yeah, no, I mean, for all the challenges and problems, I mean, you've got the ability to mobilize in your state. It's not gonna take away all the problems. And Colorado, you are a heavy lift, no doubt about it. But it takes education. And like we said, when opportunity meets a promise, so when you can't fund, when 46% of your budget goes away,
So I
people are going to be looking for solutions.
25 years in the Air Force. I want that land. I'm just going to go put my sign on it. I mean,
Yeah.
the lawyers are screwed it up. Let's go just take it. I mean,
So should we
At what
work with
point
you guys
do you
right
just
now
take
more
it?
than anything to help Utah, as far as if we can get this passed in Utah, maybe down the road somewhere, this will happen in Colorado.
jibber jabber.
Right?
Right, so you get your cities to pass resolutions, your counties to pass resolutions, get them to join the American Lands Council as we start moving this message with other counties and individuals and businesses around the West and move forward. Yeah, and so you start adding your voice and then you start leveraging, right? You start educating out, and there's no magic to it.
Well, Utah's already kind of a beacon of hope when it comes to protecting road access and everything else, as far as what you guys are doing, whether it's Kane, Garfield, San Juan County, or some examples in Arizona as well. But there's more going on with Utah with this stuff than anybody else. So we're all hoping that you guys are ultimately successful with that.
Well, we're working hard. There's a lot of challenges, and this PILT and SRS. This stuff, guys, this stuff just came down in the last couple of weeks, where they're starting to claw back promises that they made. They said you can't use your land. We're going to give you a promise, and now we're breaking that promise. You can't use your resource. We're going to give you a promise, and now we're breaking that promise. That's like
You can't put a promise in the bank.
yeah, I'm not gonna pay the rent, but I'm not moving out either. So it's we're still dealing with big challenges. Yes, sir.
Hang on.
Let's talk about the secession from Colorado. Our group is investigating the liability of putting a ballot initiative together for the 25 western counties in 2014 over some of these issues. Not allowed to drill on our lands because the governor's saying they can't do it. Not allowed to hunt on our land now because of new gun laws. Not allowed to do lots of things, which is affecting our rural environment. He even said this week, the urban solutions have to come at the expense of the rural areas of Colorado. Well, as a common community, I think it's time for us to investigate the viability of that. And so we're looking at putting a ballot initiative together for 2014 to do that.
Well, that's a